YouTube! Today we taking a look at the S23 Ultra, the new king on the streets versus the iPhone 14 Pro Max. A lot of similarities in between the two, yet so different. Let's figure out which one is better. All right, let's kick this conversation off with design. Now let's get technical real quick. You got 234 grams with the S23 Ultra versus the 240 grams on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now, when it comes to the sizing, we're talking about 6.43 inches of height versus 6.33. That's how narrow and slim of a margin and difference these have. As far as width, I mean, it's 3.07 with the S23 Ultra versus 3.06. And then as far as thickness goes, is 0.35 with the S23 Ultra versus 0.31 with the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So these are very, very similar as far as dimensions go. All right, let's take a look from a design standpoint at these two. Both very well built. Obviously, you know, stainless steel is a little bit more premium than the aluminum sides on the S23 Ultra, but that's also what adds weight. But when it comes to weight between the two, there's not much of a difference. When it comes to size between the two, there isn't much of a difference. It's just a slight edge in sizing with the S23 Ultra. And when it comes to camera module, we have 3 cameras versus 4 dedicated cameras on the S23 Ultra. So you are getting more in the camera department, and there's different specs between the two. But as far as design, that's where they separate from one another. You know, we got the iPhone with the typical Apple iPhone design, the dynamic island, color accurate display, which we'll get more into in a second. And then we have the S23 Ultra, 4 cameras, crazy megapixel counts, aluminum siding versus stainless steel siding with the iPhones. And then we got that beautiful AMOLED display from Samsung as well. Manufactured, let's just say, designed by Apple. You know, this is more of a rectangular. It has the pointed corners, which are gonna push into you a little bit differently than the rounded corners on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Another thing that's different is in the siding. Now, this is where I feel like the S23 Ultra design-wise, like the fact that it goes from the flat into the curve, that's a W. A lot of people complain about the complete flat cornered, like 90-degree angle that you get at the edge of the iPhone. So not everyone is fond of that when it comes to the iPhones, but I find neither one of them to be a problem in my handling from day to day, but other people may feel otherwise. Next up, let's talk about these displays. Now, if we want to get technical when it comes to the displays, let's talk a few specs. We got a 6.8-inch display on the S23 Ultra with a 1440 by 3088 pixel 500 ppi density versus a 6.7-inch display on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which has 1290 by 2796 pixels with a 460 ppi. So the S23 Ultra display is more pixel dense per dimensions versus the iPhone. They both have an always-on display. They both have a beautiful OLED dynamic, you know what I mean, 120 hertz refresh rate. The only difference in displays is the fact of max brightness. You have a max peak brightness of 2000 nits with the iPhone 14 Pro Max versus the max peak brightness on the S23 Ultra tapping out at 1750. All right, here we have it, the front displays, and this isn't harsh sunlight because we have clouds, but still, this is still a situation where you need the max brightness. So I have the max brightness turned all the way up on the S23 Ultra, and then Apple is doing this thing. Now, we all know that there's a difference in maximum nit brightness between these two, and it's noticeable, but it's not a deciding factor. The iPhone is brighter and clearer, but I can still see the S23 Ultra just fine and use it in these same similar conditions. Now, direct sunlight, it would probably be a different story. Both displays on both of these devices are stunning. I don't think you can go wrong with either way. Now that I've switched to the natural color representation on the S23 Ultra, it's just as good as my iPhone. Now, I don't know technically, because I know Apple's iPhone displays are color calibrated like really, really well. So I would assume that Apple probably has a slight edge in that department, but nevertheless, there's no deciding factor between these two as to display. They're both really good. One is slightly brighter with the iPhone, but outside of that, these things are like just phenomenal. I feel like it's a slight edge in brightness with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but not enough to make it a deciding factor between the two, unless you just like super snobby about that type of thing. All right, next area of discussion will be performance. Now we got the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 in the S23 Ultra, and that thing is smooth as butter. It is like fine-tuned to the Samsung ecosystem, and I appreciate that. This is the first year where I feel like Snapdragon and Samsung is on one accord, singing harmony, and it's really showing in the user experience and the results that we're getting with the S23 Ultra. Now, when you zoom into the iPhone, you guys already know they control the chip. They've been building these bionic, A this, A that chip. In this one, we have the A16 bionic, 4 nanometer, and benchmark king. But the beauty between these two is they're both very, very much efficient and powerful. Let's just be honest, the both of these are neck and neck in performance. Obviously, if you want to get into benchmarks and so forth, iPhone has the edge, and in the GPU realm, the S23 Ultra has the edge. But from an everyday user experience perspective, I don't see one or the other outperforming in day-to-day tasks, like just period. You have a choice, and you're not missing out by going with one over the other. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is platform. Now, if you go S23 Ultra, you're jumping into this One UI 5.1 platform. So I've always changed my launcher, but this year I kept it on One UI, and One UI is pretty nice. It's pretty legit. I know a lot of people are telling me get Good Luck because it's by Samsung and it's gonna work seamless and so forth. I will be doing that. So in my update, beyond that, I will have used Good Luck, but I don't want to speak on Good Luck until I've used it more. I've used it in the past, but it's been some years, so I need to see what they're working with in today's market. But I'll say this, the platform of One UI, the platform of the Samsung ecosystem, y'all see I got smart things, so don't sleep on your boy. Y'all be thinking I'm one way, when in reality, I'm swinging all ways. Well, that sounds kind of crazy. Let's take that back. Rewind. Basically, I'm using a lot of different things. If you're big on the Android platform, or if you're big on like having the ability to change your phone and just really give it a truly unique vibe and look, I mean, this is the platform to really do that on. But when we shift over to this platform, the typical iPhone platform, there's not much room for, customization and so forth. Although it has gotten slightly better, the widgets and so forth and the things that you can have, but ultimately it's still the traditional Apple, grid. And that's one thing that can get monotonous and become boring to a lot of users. But on the plus side, you do have ecosystem. And I know people are going to be like, Samsung has an ecosystem as well. And they do. You have the tablets, you have the phone, they have computers, they have washer, dryers, refrigerators, and things like that. And that's dope. But Apple has been doing it longer and stronger. Now, they don't have as many SKUs as Samsung, but their ecosystem is unmatched. Love it or hate it, when people talk about that, it is what it is. So when it comes to platform, it's really personal preference above all. What side of the fence are you trying to land on? All right, next up, this is an exciting topic between the two to talk about, and that's battery life. Oh my goodness. This is the first year in a couple of years, a handful of years, many years, that the Samsung Galaxy flagship device is actually bringing flagship battery in comparison to the Pro Max models. The Pro Max models has literally been the king for the past couple years. And finally, we have an S23 Ultra to rival that punch for punch, pound for pound. So honestly, I don't care which way you're leaning towards. It's still early for me with battery, but I don't feel much of a difference anymore. There used to be a clear winner and a clear difference when it came to battery, but now it's like neck and neck. And it just is what it is at this point. I love that. I love the idea that I could get similar to the same battery performance in between the two. I love the fact that the optimization is coming around on the Samsung platform, which I've been rooting for and picking at Samsung for years. And y'all say I'm over here nagging and blah, 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 blah. Nah, I think it's y'all who's soft. Samsung nice, relax. Put your swords down and your shields away. Relax. Y'all do be in y'all feelings. Y'all a bit more emotional than the rest, if I must be honest. Let's get into cameras. These two modules right here. And if you go by what's on paper, one has crazier specs than the other, but all that matters is how they perform. So I'm gonna run outside and use them, and you guys get to see what these two camera modules can do neck to neck. And you guys are gonna let me know down in the comment section below which is the better, you know? All right, we're currently using the front-facing camera, auto mode on both of these devices, the same way most of you guys are gonna use it. Both are shooting in 4K, and I have the S23 Ultra over here to my left, and then I have the iPhone 14 Pro Max over here to my right. You guys be the judge. Now this is ideal lighting conditions because although there's clouds out, that just means it's softening the sunlight to a perfect cast. Man, this is when I love to get out and film. So we got the S23 Ultra front selfie, take a look player, and then the iPhone 14 Pro Max. You guys get in the comment section down below and be honest, be true to yourself, leave the brand loyalty on the back burner and just keep it a buck. Which one's looking better? All right, so now we're shooting on the rear wide main rear camera on both of these devices. Now there's a difference in megapixels and all of those, you know, on paper, like things are just wildly separated, but in reality all that matters is performance. So that's all we're focusing on. So this is the main wide camera. I got the S23 Ultra right here in my left hand and the iPhone 14 Pro Max in my right hand. Let me know honestly, brand loyalty aside, which one is actually looking better. This is full auto mode. We're not doing any of the extra tweaking to get the best. We're just letting them do what they do. All right, so now it's time to take a look at what's one of my favorite cameras, which is the ultra wide. This is the same camera that will double as your macro lens. I'll show you guys that in a second. I'll just zoom in on the camera over there. But on my left, S23 Ultra full effect, and then on my right, iPhone 14 Pro Max. Put them right next to each other. Y'all be the judge. Hit the comment section down below. And all I ask is that you be real about it. All right, the next test is 3x video. As you guys can see, which one is looking better and true. When I look at the displays, I see a difference in color representation, so I'm gonna see if that translates when I upload this. Boom. Okay, so we're back from the camera test. You guys saw the results. I won't see anything until I get into the editing process, so I'll leave my thoughts for a later commentary. But I need you guys to hit the comment section right now and let me know which camera did better and why. And leave your bias aside. Thank you. Now, the last and final topic, which is user experience. And boy, is this a topic to discuss between these two devices, because at this point, user experience is so phenomenal on the both of these. Phenomenal devices. Like, this is the first year I could see the S23 Ultra being a possible iPhone replacer for like people who want to get out of the Apple ecosystem and try something different. Pixels are more ideal in the sense that their OS is very similar, but I'm not gonna lie, One UI is looking nice and clean and smooth as butter this year. So, man, great phones, can't go wrong either way. Now, if we start off with the S23 Ultra, this is the year of Samsung. A lot of people are raving about this device. You can't even say anything negative without getting hung out to dry. Like, it's well-rounded, it's well put together, it's smooth as ever, animations popping. Like, it's an ideal all-around package, battery life galore. Finally, it's the user experience that we deserved on a Samsung Ultra device all of these years, and it's finally here. And it can only get better. Don't drop the ball, Samsung. Coco, you feel me? Pay attention. This is how you do it, baby. This is how you set up the ideal user experience. This is how you give a device that many can learn to love and even possibly switch to. Yeah, I said it. And then we come over here to the user experience of the iPhone 14 Pro Max, another phenomenal player in the game. This iPhone 14 Pro Max has yielded an ideal user experience thus far. It's carrying the torch from its previous predecessor, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and it's doing it with a little bit more oomph. Now, a lot of people, you know, have mixed opinions about the dynamic display, whether it's a gimmick or not. I think it was genius of Apple to figure out a way to embrace the dual hole punch up there, because from early leaks, people were not excited about it at all. So for them to use software to help hide and incorporate and give it even more function, I felt that that was ideal for the user experience. Now, whether or not that's worth the upgrade from previous year's models, that's up for debate always, and that's up to the user that makes the change, but what I can say about the 14 Pro Max is that the user experience is smooth as butter and it's what's typical from the iPhone. Now, when it comes to these two, in comparison, you guys already know. It's simple as this. One has an invisible wall filled with a beautiful garden within for those who see it as waterfalls and bliss. And then the other one is free. Make your choice. Don't put it up to me. It's literally up to you. It's your choice.